Hey everyone, it's Brandon here with Front Page Pop, bringing you all the latest in celebrity news and reality TV. I am here today with the amazing runner-up of Cycle 21 of America's Next Top Model and winner of Amazing Race, Will Jardell. Hello, Will.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Of course, thanks for hopping on. We are going to talk all about America's Next Top Model and the resurgence with the documentaries and your time on the show and afterwards and all that stuff. So it'll be exciting for
I'm
sure to dive
excited.
in.
It's been a wild time with Top Model just coming back into all of our lives.
Yeah, for sure, in such a big way. So, kind of going back to the beginning, did you watch Top Model ever before you were on the show, and what made you want to audition?
So I grew up watching the show. I feel like it came out when I was around 13, and I would watch the reruns on, I think it was Oxygen. They had their
Hmm.
Sunday where they would do the whole episode, a whole season on the Sundays.
Yes.
But I stayed up to date with every season, watched it when it aired. When I went to college, I would literally like run to my dorm room to watch the new episode. And I didn't apply for the first Guys and Girls season,
Okay.
just because I don't know, no confidence, and I was shy and whatever.
Yeah.
But then the second Guys and Girls season, they did it where it was like Tyra.com. She made like a Facebook for models, and that's I made a
Hmm.
profile, and that's kind of how I got um reached out to. But I was and always will be a huge fan.
Yeah, that's cool. Did you watch Cycle 20, the first Guys and Girls
Of
season?
course.
Okay.
And I think watching it with the guys kind of made me feel more like comfortable applying, just having seen what it could potentially be like.
Yeah.
Um, Cycle 20 is a great season.
It is. There's so much talent there. And when you applied and kind of finally made it into the house, were you like a little more confident because a girl won the first guys and girls season? So you were kind of like, okay, it's probably a guy's time to win. Did
Yeah, I think we all kind of assumed that a guy would win.
you?
There was a certain point at the beginning where we started to figure out who was going to win. Um,
Yeah.
but we definitely thought that a guy was going to win. It was time.
Yeah, for sure. And you actually met your now husband, James Wallington. He was a casting assistant for the show. Talk to me about that. How did you meet? When did you get together?
Yeah. So my first email from the show was actually from him.
Hmm.
His boss was the casting director of the show, and they had requested him to reach out to a couple of people from the Tyra.com platform, and I was
Yeah.
one of them. He was just a name and an email for me for quite a while, and then when I flew out to finals in LA, um, you interact with a lot of people on the casting team and just on the production team. And in passing, we met when he was helping the casting director help the models pick out their outfits.
Okay.
So they were going to everybody's rooms and going through everybody's outfits to see what they would wear for their first meeting with Tyra and the
Hmm.
judges. That was our first face-to-face meeting. And it just felt like instant connection. It felt like very, this is different. This is, like, I don't know, intriguing.
Yeah.
But then over the next week, we did, you do like the psych evaluations. You stay in this hotel room. You're kind of locked in and can't leave. And so the production crew has to come and bring you water and food. And so he would come and bring water and food to the hotel rooms. We didn't like hang out or make anything official until after the show. And he had slipped his phone number into my belongings because you give production your phone, your computer,
Hmm.
whatever you have. So he had slipped his phone number in there. And when I got it all back, I ended up texting him even before calling my family. Because I was excited. I was like, this
Yeah.
is intriguing. And I had talked about him with the other models in the house. They knew kind of what was going on, or just that we were interested. And then about a month later, he flew out to Texas where I was living.
Hmm.
Kind of like, just let's see if this is like worth exploring, or if this is anything that's going on, or
Sure.
whatever. And so he flew out to Texas, spent a week there. Yeah, and then the rest is history. We did long distance for like 4 months, and then I moved to Los Angeles.
Nice. Did you know that he slipped your number in beforehand, or did you kind of just like randomly find it afterwards?
I randomly found it. I had
Okay.
no idea that it was in there. It was like a huge box of all my stuff because they shipped it back, or not shipped it back, but they had it ready to go from Korea. Um,
Mhm.
but I randomly found it.
That's funny. Nice. Good move on his part, I guess.
Right?
It worked. So when you walk into that first photo shoot, that first week after casting, you see Tsai as and he's introduced as the creative director. What was your reaction to that? Obviously, knowing I think it was Johnny Wujek
Yeah.
from before he was no longer a part of it. Obviously, Mr. J wasn't.
I, at the time, didn't know who Yusai was, and I think
Sure.
a couple of us did. I did not, but his energy was great. When the camera was on him, he would turn on. He would get loud and uh, have a great time. When the camera's off, he was a different person.
Interesting.
Would come and talk to us and like be very kind and making sure we were okay. Like there was a lot of warmth coming from Yusai when the cameras were off. When the cameras were on, it definitely was like, okay, we're
Interesting.
making a TV show.
Yeah.
But I thought it was great. I think he and I had a pretty fun and positive relationship with the photo shoots that we did.
Hmm.
Um, I like people like correcting me. I like that feedback when I'm doing something, whether it's like a sport or even this.
Hmm.
For photo shoots, I like that constant feedback. So I thrive in that type of environment, but I don't think everybody did.
Yeah, definitely not. But that's good. That's interesting to know that he like was kind of playing a character more tough on
For
screen.
sure. And I think all the judges kind of do, because even with Kelly
Sure.
Cutrone, like she has some great one-liners in the show.
Yeah.
But when the cameras are off, she's also just like, or she was very kind and uh, supportive of all of us, I thought.
Yeah. That's good. So, kind of zooming back out a little bit, did you watch the recent ANTM documentaries? You've been posting a little bit about both of them. Tell me your thoughts at kind of a high level of those.
I watched both of them. I actually watched the Dirty Rotten Scandals
Yeah.
recently, like 2 days ago.
Okay.
Um, I was really excited about them just because I thought, top models definitely having a moment online.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot to like to unpack, and I think um, what I am having a hard time with after watching it is just how um, much more of the contestant stories need to be at the forefront. I think
Hmm.
there was a lot of publicity with the three former judges who have been a part
Right.
of the show, but I unfortunately don't agree with the victimhood of that
Right.
situation. They were all in positions of power and making money, and it was a job for them.
Hmm.
But I think hearing the stories of the models to me is way more important and um, eye-opening because those were the faces of the show, and why people tuned in is to see these girls at the early seasons
Hmm.
um, kind of grow into models throughout the cycle. So
Right.
um, it's weird because it's like we have these judges who we've all looked up to and learned from and loved on the show, and
Hmm.
now they've been negatively impacted by it. But then we have all these models who have been through this traumatic experience. Um, so it's been odd, but
Yeah.
I loved watching them both. I think it gave a lot of new insights that I think none of us knew. Um, and I think it just gets the conversation continuing about like how do we protect people who do reality TV? How do we make sure that
Yeah.
they're taken care of? Because everybody from that show leaves it broke,
Hmm.
with not a lot of opportunity that they were promised, and so
Yeah.
it just opens the conversation for sure.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And even like the Dirty Rotten Scandals was more contestant focused, and kind of I could say negative, but it was factual as a whole. But they also featured a lot of like journalists and things like that. I
Mhm.
think it was interesting to hear their point, but like maybe too much focus on that. Would have loved to hear even more from contestants. So I feel like I don't know,
Yeah.
we could have like a 20-part documentary.
Oh, you
All
could
the
talk about it for years and years and not really
yes,
even scratch the surface of
right.
every single person's experience.
Hmm. For sure. It was kind of focused more on the earlier seasons. Obviously, those were like the, golden age and kind of the early 2000s and things like that. We know that Tsai and Kelly Cutrone weren't a part of it. How did you kind of feel about that? Did you feel like the later seasons were just kind of glossed over? Did you feel like a certain way about that at all?
I mean, there's definitely a shift in the show. I think the
Hmm.
first 10, 14-ish seasons, it had the same format. There wasn't any like theme. Um, and I think the formula just eventually started to get redundant. And then they
Yeah.
switched to doing gimmicks. They had All Stars and college and UK and all
Yeah.
the guys and girls and all these things. And so I I do also think that production in reality TV changed
Mhm.
um, over the years. I think there became a little bit more understanding of like, here's what we're doing. We probably need all these rules and everything in place. And so those first like 10 seasons of most reality shows was like the Wild Wild West. That nobody
Yeah.
knew what they were doing. And so I totally understand the focus on those earlier seasons of the show because it was different. It's definitely a different show from the beginning and then
Yeah.
the last like 6 seasons.
For sure. What was your experience like working with Kelly and Yusai? You talked about that a little bit, how they were kind of playing a role for sure, but did you get to have a lot of time with them off camera?
Not, I mean, I think a misconception that a lot of people who watch the show have is that you have this unlimited access to these people.
Yeah.
Um, I think the only time that we would interact with Kelly was that panel.
Okay.
Maybe she came to a couple of challenges, but even then they would give their spiel and then they
Mhm.
would go away while we did the task or whatever and come back to watch it or whatever. So
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of time to have one-on-one with any of the judges. Maybe more so Miss J, because Miss J was around quite a bit more. But then Yusai, we definitely had access to Yusai and would talk to him and get, you know, cozy and have
Yeah.
that one-on-one time with him. Um, I I think a lot of people on my season took the critiques and criticism personally.
Mm.
I mean, it's hard not to.
Yeah,
You're
yeah.
literally your people are making comments about your body and what you're doing, and it's hard to not take it personally. But I think for me, I I think I went into the experience knowing it was a TV show,
Mhm.
um, which
Okay.
helped a lot because I could
Yeah.
separate the fact that like what they're saying is just part of the experience, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, so I didn't take a lot of the criticism or the negative comments personally.
Okay.
So my experience
Good.
with especially Usai and Kelly was and Miss J was also always really positive
Hmm.
because it was I mean it's a TV show.
Yeah.
We're trying to make good TV. Um, but yeah, it was. I mean, you really don't have access to them more so than just like panel and the photo shoots. Most of your time is spent doing nothing.
Yeah, right. On ice and everything like that.
Oh
It
my
sounds like
God.
from other interviews, so that would drive me nuts.
It is not that being on ice and all of that is the worst. It is the worst.
Yeah, no, I can imagine for sure. So the Netflix documentary kind of focused a lot, maybe other than like the Shandy situation, of what we saw on camera And I think what a lot of contestants are wanting to now come out and talk about and really wanting fans and viewers to understand is also the terrible, horrible things that happen to a lot of contestants behind the scenes and all this production manipulation and things like that. Did you experience or relate to any of that that was talked about?
Yeah, I there's a lot there's a lot that happens that doesn't air. I mean, I
Okay.
think the one of the craziest parts is you would go in to do these hour and a half, maybe more long interviews with a producer. They're called story producers. So you would
Okay.
sit in a room with the camera, the story producer, and they would have this laundry list of questions they would want to ask you. Sometimes it would be from the day before. Sometimes they would ask questions from day one, and it was like the end of the show. So they would jump around the timeline quite a bit with the
Okay.
interviews. And I think something that Lisa said in the Dirty Rotten Scandals about how they would ask you questions about something, they would get you emotional, and then they
Hmm.
would flip the script to start asking you about something else. That it happens. They would talk to me. I would make me talk about family and growing up and all these things, and then they would flip the script to talk about, okay, let's talk about Denzel. So obviously you're already in an emotional state because of the first conversation, and now you're crying about something that's not really that upsetting, but now
Sure.
it makes it look like it's upsetting. Um, so that was at the beginning. It was really hard to be like, what is happening? This is like um,
Yeah.
overwhelming because of how long these interviews are and just how emotional you would become in them.
Hmm.
Um, the other thing that was hard is I mean, it's crazy to me that they would pay us. I think the price may have gone up over time, but ours was $50 a day. We would have to buy our own food.
Hmm.
Um, we're obviously in Los Angeles, so living is a little more expensive.
Yeah.
Um, we had to pay for our laundry to be done, and we had to pay for any like toiletries we needed. If we needed toothpaste or more whatever shaving
Hmm.
cream, we had to pay for them to go get that. That stuff's not cheap. um, we had to pay for alcohol. We had to pay for anything that we needed while we were there that we didn't already have. We had to pay for from that $50 a day. And
Wow.
so we would make these laundry or list of um, groceries for them to go buy for us. They would, go get it. Sometimes not be the right stuff. Um, and so by the end of it, you have no money.
Yeah.
Uh, you're working, technically working, like 12 hours at least a day because the cameras are on you 24/7. And I think I walked away from the show. It was 8 weeks, so whatever 50 times 8 times 7, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, I think I walked away from the show with like a grand, like $1,000, having to go back home to pay the bills that I had missed,
Yeah.
rent, a car note, electricity bills, whatever it was. And so
Hmm.
leaving to be like, oh, I got to find a job quick because I don't have any money. Um, and then, like, I think watching the documentary, I never thought about how all the people who were working on the show were just making so much money off of
Yeah.
all of our faces, um, in perpetuity. Like my face and my image or whatever will always be associated with this show, whether I
Right.
like it or not. And I will never make a dollar from that. But
Yeah.
a list of people will make
Yes.
money off of me being a part of that show for 16 episodes. So it's that part is crazy to me. The money part is crazy. I also
Yes.
think that with the editing, um, I think I would say about 80% of what I did on the show was edited to be true. But I
Okay.
think for a lot of people, they would edit conversations about something else and then
Hmm.
show it on the show about a completely different scenario. It
Yeah.
happened a lot to Lennox. Lennox said some
Oh.
stuff about people, and but they would edit it to where she was talking about somebody else. And
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching the show with her. We lived together after the show, and she was just like, I didn't
Oh.
say that about that person. That was not, she got kind of edited to be like attacking multiple people when she really only had a problem with one person. So I think the edit, they definitely manipulate it
Mm.
to fit the narrative that they want to make. Um,
Yeah.
I think on my season with the guys and the girls too, though, they played a lot into the the relations that they wanted people to
Sure.
have.
Yeah.
And on my season, we had we had Mariana and Denzel, we had Kari and Keith. Uh, I want to say that's it. And then there was like a Keith and Chantel moment. Like there was a lot of just like canoodling happening on the show,
Yeah.
and they loved that. Egged it on.
Mhm.
I remember one day walking back into the house and there was like a bowl of condoms, and like it was just part of
Yeah.
what they wanted to happen on the
Mhm.
show. Um, for the story, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are some of the things that come to mind first. But there's lots of.
Endless. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that. Yeah. No, that's interesting. Especially like when it comes to the couples thing, obviously it's such a different experience than other cycles. They kind of tested it out a bit with cycle 20,
Yeah.
and then it's like full on multiple relationships in your cycle. So that's super interesting. Especially with kind of how they like paired you up in different challenges and photo shoots and things like that to kind of uh, light the fire
Stir
and
the pot.
stir the pod. Yes, exactly. So, talk to me about the heels. That is kind of like your iconic moment. You walked into the audition to talk to the judges in heels. You wore them in a later episode, which we'll kind of get to. Was that influenced at all by production or encouraged, or was that like all you?
Uh, it was actually discouraged by production. So I had
Oh,
bought
interesting.
these. I mean, these heels were not fancy. They were like $50 from a I don't know, exotic dancing website. They were a size 16 in women's. Like they were patent leather, whatever. I had bought them for we were doing a dance performance in heels to Beyonce when I was in college, and so I loved wearing them. I thought that they were fun. They made me incredibly tall.
I
I
was
was
gonna
over
say like,
7 foot tall with these heels
yeah,
on. So I bought them. I brought them on the show just because, like, I don't know, maybe I'll wear them. Maybe they'll come in handy. Maybe I need them for a runway, whatever.
yeah,
And then we had a lot of conversations with production as we're kind of uh, getting ready to meet the judges and kind of doing our first interviews to share who we are and kind of make a statement. And a lot of the things that the production crew would say was just, you got to be bold, you got to be an elevated version of yourself all the time. And
hmm
so I'm, stewing and thinking, okay, I need to do something that makes me stand out from all these other guys, especially because I'm not
yeah,
really competing with the girls. I'm competing for a spot on the guys' side of the house.
right,
And so um, I had asked the casting director, should I wear these? Like, I brought them. I would love to. And she's like, no, do not wear those. Do not wear those when you meet Tyra. I was like, okay, whatever. And then we go to the first panel,
hmm
and I had brought them. I, whatever, sneakily put them in my bag and had them with me. And then before honestly, 5 minutes before I went out to meet the judges for the first time, I asked one of the production assistants to go run and grab them from the bus. I put them on and walked out. The casting director had no idea it was happening. And I just made that decision myself because I really just wanted to be true to what I wanted to do and what I wanted
yeah,
my experience to be. Um, yeah, I thought I got to make a bold statement, and that was it.
yeah, and you did. It's so memorable. So, your relationship with James after the show, was there any kind of like I don't know, awkwardness or like extra tea spilling between you all or stuff like that? Any resentment because he was a part of like the production monster? Um, any kind of like that?
Um, no,
Okay.
casting plays a specific role,
Right.
and they left and weren't part of the show. If anything, having James, who knew what the experience was, who had seen kind of what we were all going through, who had met all of the models who were part of my cycle.
Hmm.
After the show, I lived with four of them, and having him as like an outsider who was also involved a little bit honestly helped kind of have someone to talk to and to share and to vent to, because he did have some limited knowledge of like what was going on.
Hmm.
So if anything, it was a benefit, and I think a lot of the models from my cast relied on him too as like a soundboard of just like support, because he was
Hmm.
the only person that honestly still talked to us from the show.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good that you had him for that then. Another theme kind of the documentaries was body shaming that happened on and off camera with the models. Obviously, they focused on the women, but the later seasons, there's like a little bit of that with the male models, like when it comes to the abs, and some people were too muscular or not muscular enough, and all that, which I get is probably realistic in the modeling world, but it also
Yeah.
felt like a little hypocritical because they had focused so much on body inclusivity and size
Yeah.
inclusivity and everything from the women. Did you experience that at all?
I that was one part of the experience that was really challenging for me.
Right.
I obviously I don't have or I didn't have abs. I don't have abs right now. Like my body type was not that muscular compared to the other boys, and also most male models who have these ripped muscular bodies. Um, that's just not who I was, and so
Mm,
I think that first photo shoot with the water coming down,
yeah.
it was just like constant conversation about what my body looked like. And
Hmm.
I think it was the first time that people were talking about what I looked like in front of me. And I
Mm,
remember being so uncomfortable and just very self conscious walking away from that panel. I was in the bottom two.
right.
And so you get in your head of just like, oh, am I not going to do well because of the way that I look? Like,
Hmm.
then the next day you go and you're like, I asked Kari, I was like, Kari, help me work out. Like, let's, because she was a college athlete and ripped and
Yeah.
doing the workouts in the house. And so I got in my head a lot because of what they would say, um, because I didn't look like everybody else. And it's different for the guys, I will say. Like, while that was for me, it was causing anxiety and making me feel so self-conscious.
Yeah.
Girls had it way harder with how people would talk about what they looked like. So that was hard to watch as well, because it was constant. Every panel there was a comments about how everyone looked, and that's why Top Model is such a hard show compared to other reality shows. Is that you're obviously competing, but the competition is about how you look. And
Right.
so there's not something you can do besides work out, but you can't change how you look. And so when people make
Mhm.
comments, it just leads to like self-consciousness and self-deprecation, and for some, as we saw in the documentary, eating disorders, because you hearing that type of critique really tears you down.
Yeah.
um, those first couple episodes for me on the show, I was really in a low place trying to like rebuild what my vision of my like self-worth was, because of all
Hmm.
these critiques about how I looked. And then she made comments about the willy hunch, um,
Yeah.
which is just because I'm a giant and I hunch over to make sure that I am the same size as everybody else. um, but then you're in your head constantly thinking about these things that they've said and how do I fix it? How do I be better? How do I look better? And so it's kind of a negative mindset that the show puts you in with the commentary.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you said, it is very personal because it's about you. And something like having abs, or even they said Denzel was too muscular. And it's like you're filming weeks at a time, or 3 or 4 days at a time, in Top Model World is a week. But that's even like you can't just get abs in a day. So it's
No.
not like something you can change
Right.
for next week.
Right.
It's kind of like ongoing.
Exactly. Like we would all work out or like we would talk about what we're eating and but even then like every episode like you said was 3 days. You had
Mhm.
3 days to prepare for the next week and you can't change anything in that amount of time. There's no
Right.
way.
Yeah. Not to mention, they're probably like encouraging y'all to drink more and more because all the fights that happen and the hookups afterwards. So,
God.
which I'm sure that didn't help.
It's also because we had Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. Adam was the real one egging it
Adam
on.
was the party animal.
Yes. It seems like he still is. So,
Yeah.
no, good for him. Your friendship with Matthew was highlighted a lot on the show. And they kind of possibly edited it to be a little more like flirty, at least on his end. And there was this like, oh, what's his sexuality? He's gay, but he doesn't know it. And, some of the other contestants even confronted him at one point after kind of a wild night. I think y'all kissed, supposedly. So talk to me about that. Was that your experience of how it happened, or was it definitely like blown out of proportion by production and editing?
Definitely not blown out of proportion.
Okay.
It was very flirty. I think him and I had conversations about just like being open and living your life. He was very kind of like boho style of
Hmm.
a guy, which honestly I had never met someone like that, and so it was fun. I flirted with him. He would kind of flirt back, and I think after we had the spider bite shoot in the commercial that we shot, that kind
Hmm.
of opened the door to like have more conversations about him, his experiences that he's had even before the show, and um, just kind of like keeping that flirtatious energy going. Um, yeah, there was one night where we obviously had a lot to drink, but it was just like I think part of it too was trying to break the stigma that other people in the house had about what it is to be human, I guess, as
Hmm.
a male, and trying to
Sure.
make them see that like you can literally love and kiss and do whatever you want to do in this life, and it's not anyone's place to judge. And so I think the conversation that we had with other people before we had kissed in the house was just about that of just like stop
Hmm.
telling people what they can and can't do or judging them or making them feel inferior,
Right.
which led to then us be like, okay, fine, we'll kiss, it's fine. um, but yeah, we had such a fun relationship that um, continued after the show. Like we hung
Okay.
out and um, yeah, he was a great friend for a time after the show.
Okay. Nice. That's good that y'all continue the friendship afterwards, at least for a little while.
Yeah,
And obviously, y'all were paired together for the spider commercial, like
yeah,
you said. That was definitely one of those points I was like, okay, that wasn't random at all. Production obviously paired y'all together, and then they split up Mariana and Denzel, and like had some jealousy there. It just that was like a whole nother kind of game for production to
it's
play.
a game. They
Yeah,
knew what they were doing. They knew what they were doing.
for sure. So we also witnessed the first disqualification, at least I think so, from violence
Yeah,
and kind of putting hands on each other in this season. That was when Romeo headbutted Adam. Seemed again like after y'all were, having a fun night. It almost seemed like he kissed his cheek at one point too when they were
hmm
getting very close. What was your experience with that situation? We really didn't see much except for like the headbutt, obviously, and then it kind of dissolved. And then the next day, y'all go to the challenge and we see Miss J being like, Romeo, bye. Was there anything else that kind of happened behind the scenes with that?
I mean, that evening was a long build up.
Okay.
Um, Full transparency, we were not everybody in the house. There were some underage girlies,
Yeah.
but we were drinking quite a bit.
Mhm.
And everybody who was there, we watched as Romeo would uh, instigate arguments with, especially Adam. Adam was also kind of a shitster. He loved stirring the pot and kind of provoking Romeo just because, to be very honest,
Mhm.
Romeo's persona felt um, fake.
Yeah.
It felt as though he was putting on the performance the entire time we were there, because there was moments when him and I would talk and he would be completely different, and then the camera's on and he's like witchy and all these things, and so
Yeah.
it felt disingenuous, and I think Adam decided like, oh, let's prod, let's poke at it.
Mhm.
And so after hours of hanging out and constantly arguing about whatever it was, it just got to a head where they would get in each other's face. We would break it up for a little bit, and then eventually they would come back and start arguing again. And then I think after a certain period of time, all of us were like, I can't take responsibility for this.
Right.
Romeo is very intoxicated. Like at one point, I went and put him in bed, but then 30 minutes later, he's out of bed yelling at him again. So it was a long evening. I think at
Yeah.
that time it was like 2 or 3 in the morning when
Wow.
all of this happened. Um, but yeah, when he did that, I think all of us immediately were like putting Romeo to bed. Somebody stay in here with him. Make sure
Mhm.
that he does not leave this room, because we all recognized that like this was a problem. This was not okay.
Yeah.
This was against the rules. I don't think we thought he would be disqualified.
Okay.
Um, I don't think we knew what was going to happen. And I think we were all very shocked when we arrived the next day and he was just gone. Um,
Mhm.
because it was not scary, but it was like, um, I don't know, aggressive or
Yeah.
like not necessary, I guess, too. Um, but that was a long night.
Yeah.
long of just trying to like control the situation.
Sure.
Um, yeah.
Do you think Adam was purposely egging him on to get Romeo to that point, or do you think at one point Adam was like, "Okay, this is like a little much. I'm
No.
stepping back."
Um, I think Adam definitely had motive. I think he had figured out that he could push Romeo's buttons. I don't think it was his intention to like get him disqualified,
Sure.
but I do think it was his intention to like rattle him. I
Mm.
think
Okay.
the show, there is a little bit of mind games. If somebody's in their head when they go to a photo shoot, they're probably not going to do well, but it also means that for their storyline, they were in a, I don't know, they were not in a good headspace. And
Yeah.
so they may not pick the best photo for that person. So you're kind of trying to force people to not be the best version of themselves for whatever task you have. And I
Sure.
think Adam picked up on that quite quickly, and used it to his advantage, especially against Romeo.
Yeah. No, Adam was definitely like the frat party guy, but he's very smart, and you could tell like,
He is the
yeah.
smartest person I think I've ever met.
Oh wow.
Like
Interesting.
IQ
Yeah.
wise, he is smart.
Yeah. Was Romeo also gay or anything like that, or were you the only one, if you know and feel comfortable sharing?
Romeo was bisexual. They never showed this, but I actually not made out, but I kissed Romeo. It was his birthday. But yeah, he I think he said it on the show, but he was bisexual.
Okay.
Other than that, nobody else while we were filming. However, Lennox is now married to a lovely woman and they just had a
Yeah.
baby, and I'm obsessed. Lennox came to our wedding.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
Her and her wife came to our wedding, and yeah, I love that girl.
Yeah. I love her too. She's awesome. I thought you were gonna reveal some tea about another guy, and I was like, oh, I haven't heard
Oh
that one
God.
yet.
I mean, Adam, I mean, Matthew had experiences, which he
Sure.
shared on the show with us, but
Yeah. Yeah. Romeo got eliminated or disqualified on his birthday, didn't he? Or like the day
yeah,
after?
yeah,
Because I remember Adam being like, this is one birthday he'll never forget, or
yeah,
said something funny like that. So,
yeah. I felt bad, but also like we are all in control of our own choices.
yeah, for sure. So let's go back to this situation with Denzel. I'm sure this is like something you get asked about a lot, and it's a very potentially heavy topic. So only share with what you're comfortable sharing. But y'all seemed like pretty cool in the house, and then obviously we get to this point in the competition where you overhear him talking with Keith, and he's like, "My friends are gonna make fun of me for being in this gay thing." I think were the words he used, and if he lost to you because you're yeah, I think he called you at one point like a feminine homosexual was the term he used. Take us back to that and how you felt in that moment, and then we'll kind of get into it being addressed in
Yeah.
judgment in a minute.
Um. So setting this scene of how the house is laid out. So our
Okay.
upstairs had like 8 beds.
Hmm.
Downstairs had like 5 beds, but there was a spiral staircase from the upstairs bedroom to the downstairs.
Yeah.
You could hear what was happening in other rooms. At that point, all of us were in the kitchen. We were cooking. It was dinner time, and I was running upstairs to go grab something. Um, I grab whatever, and I hear Keith and Denzel talking. I hear the whole conversation. Honestly, kind of serendipitous that I was there. Like,
I was
what?
gonna say, yeah,
What?
not to interrupt you, but so production wasn't like, "Hey, go take
No,
something from upstairs." It was like total
it was
chance.
all by accident.
Okay.
I don't even know if they were being filmed. Um, by a camera. I think they may have had the cameras on the wall cameras. So I hear this whole conversation, and at this point, we're like halfway through. You have built relationships with these people, and obviously have shared things with everybody about life and experiences, and
Yeah.
building that level of trust as friends, as competitors too. But to your face, everybody is saying one thing, but then I think when I realized that behind closed doors there was another conversation happening about what they actually thought about me and who I was and how I was behaving or whatever on the show. It was like a intense shock to my system where
Yeah.
I went downstairs, went straight to like Raylia and Mariana and was like, this is what just happened.
Hmm.
And they're all like freaking out
I
because
love that
I'm like,
Ray like went
yeah,
right up there immediately, and she was like, "I'm
vividly.
friendly."
I was vividly upset, and they all ran over to him, and be like, what are you talking about? What are you doing?" Um, so I had obviously had that little support, but I don't think that at that point in my life I had ever experienced. I come from a small town in Texas, like whatever. There's
Hmm.
uh, not a lot happening, and so I never had experienced like outward homophobia or like outward discussion of my sexuality and that negativeness that was being
Yeah.
talked about. So it was kind of like a shock. Um, I didn't really confront him that night. I like guess
Right.
he came over to me. You see this in the show when I'm just like, stay away.
Hmm.
I need a second to process what's happening to me.
Of course.
Um, but yeah, it was a lot to to me. The thing is just like how hard it was to build this level of trust with a human, and then
Hmm.
behind closed doors you are saying something completely different than what you say to my face, and that was
Right.
hard to accept and to recognize that, like, oh, I have now lost trust with you, but does that mean I need to not trust everybody around me? Do I need to not trust every guy that's here on this show?
Mm.
um, so it really impacted my entire like existence on the show,
Right.
with everybody.
Yeah, I could understand that for sure. Especially maybe Keith, even though he didn't necessarily share the same sentiments that we saw on camera in the edit, but just the fact that they were talking about it And I'm
Yeah.
sure that kind of broke some bridges there. And it was ironic that Adam, or not ironic, but interesting that Adam was kind of also one to comfort you in the
Yeah.
kitchen afterwards and kind of shared that story about his past.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. That was a shocking and surprising, but like a welcome
Yeah.
surprise. Um,
And then we kind of get into the confessional interviews, which were presumably days later. And then he's trying to talk to you after you kind of heard them, and you're like, I'm not interested. And then it cuts to his confessional, and he's like, oh, he's just blowing this out of proportion and dragging it and all this kind of stuff. He's acting like a girlfriend instead of a conversation I'm trying to have man to man and stuff like that. So he really doubled down on it. It wasn't like an oops, I
yeah.
feel bad, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
He really doubled down. Did that kind of reopen any wounds when you were watching that part afterwards?
I think so. His and I's relationship after that point was rocky. I
Sure.
didn't trust him. We tried to like reconcile even after the show, and
Hmm.
I feel like we went to lunch and tried to do all these things to try and like be friendly, I guess. But any time that clip would pop up, it would take me immediately back to like, I don't trust this person. I don't like how this was handled. So it just impacted us and like never allowed me to get over it, which I'm
Hmm.
okay with. I am very okay with the fact that like that is kind of where our relationship took a
Sure.
different turn. I don't need that energy.
Yeah, definitely not. And then we get to judging, and you wore your heels, and Tyra's like, oh, you're wearing your heels. Why'd you wear them today? Which, granted, she probably
No.
guessed and knew. So, a couple kind of questions. Were you encouraged to wear the heels by production again? Did you wear them your choice to kind of make that statement? Were you planning to bring it up? Production encourage you to bring it up? Did you like how Tyra handled it? Kind of
Yeah.
all those questions jumbled into one.
Yeah, I nobody told me to wear the heels. That was a choice of
Okay.
my own. I will say that at this point when this happened, this was like a turning point for me as like a
Hmm.
human.
Sure.
Um I my confidence like flipped and I or like flipped into a positive direction, and I just like decided that you know what? I'm going to prove all of you wrong. I'm going to
Hmm.
do this. I'm going to work to win. And I think that like shift was very good for me because um, I wore the heels and I felt really great about going in there and saying, this happened. I didn't like this.
Hmm.
But they brought it up in panel. I thought the way that it was handled was mediocre.
Okay.
I think that them talking to him was positive. Like he needed to hear what they said. But
Hmm.
then I didn't feel as though I was receiving the comfort or the like support
Okay.
that I probably needed as a 23-year-old, I don't know,
Yeah.
kid that was standing in front of them. Nobody really asked me, "Are you okay?"
Mm.
Which
Right.
was in hindsight now I'm like, well, that's weird. Why did nobody ask me if I was okay? But I think there were two parts to it where he got what he needed. He definitely heard what they needed to tell him.
Yeah.
Um, but then on the flip side, like nobody, even in interviews too, nobody was like, "Hey, this happened. Are you okay?" Um,
Wow.
so
Yeah. No, that's interesting. That's a good point. Because, I mean, I just rewatched that scene this morning, and I didn't even think about that. So that's interesting that you bring that up, and kind of surprising that they didn't, especially like, Miss J being a part of the
yeah,
panel and being part of that discussion.
yeah.
Well, you were obviously a talented model on the show. Your portfolio is awesome. I love your guest photos. Those are really good.
Thank you.
Yes, and you finished in second behind Keith, who I think everyone kind of knew he was going to win. Tyra was not going to let that go. But you also modeled some after the show. You were on Non Magazine, Fantastics Mag. You modeled for the No Hate campaign, even. You also went on to do The Amazing Race with your boyfriend, or then boyfriend, now husband. And I think it was season 32.
Yeah.
I'm correct? Okay. So you've done a lot. What was your experience like modeling after the show? How was that different than modeling on the show? And then similarly, how was your experience filming Amazing Race different than Top
Yeah.
Model?
Um, I relate to a lot of what people have said in the documentary about after the show.
Mhm.
Um, it was hard. I moved to LA with like, oh, I was on Top Model and all these opportunities are gonna pop up and it's gonna be great. But I
Mhm.
think after like one meeting with an agency, I had brought like all my Top Model photos and they immediately were like, no, thank you. And I was like, okay, this is weird. So
Mhm.
over time, I like took out all of my Top Model photos. I don't think I included any in any like submissions that I was doing. I had to like schedule a ton of new photo shoots to do to try and get better photos that felt a little more real
Yeah.
and not overproduced. Like me whipping my hair with a fake blonde thing, that is not, nobody's gonna
Yeah.
need that.
Pretending to be a spider.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I looked good, but like it wasn't
Yeah.
like this is not marketable.
Yeah.
um, so it was really hard to find people who would take me seriously, and I think all of us had this issue because we were all living together, going through the same thing.
Yeah.
It was just really challenging to not have that top model label and to
Mhm.
find work. I think
Yeah.
when I first moved to LA, I was working like 5 jobs. I was tutoring math. I was driving for Uber. I was working at a dance studio. I was doing all these things just to make ends meet while also
Mhm.
trying to do um, modeling gigs and finding an
Yeah.
agency. Eventually, I did find one in LA and New York, and I did it for about a year.
Okay.
But even then, I went to one casting, and they eventually casted me, but not for like the part or whatever, or the
Mhm.
modeling job. They casted me as like the personality, the top model personality. So I
Okay.
got I got pigeonholed into being Will from America's Next Top Model, which
Right.
was challenging. It was hard to kind of find your footing. And so I think after a certain point, I was like, you know what? I think I just need to lean into this and like figure out a new path. Maybe modeling is not the way to go. Maybe, I don't know, something else. And so we had started applying for The Amazing Race. Um, right after Top Model, we had applied 3 times to The Amazing Race.
Okay.
Um, got picked on our third try, and it's funny because the executive producer of The Amazing Race at one point on the show was like, "How does this compare to America's Next Top Model?" While we were filming, I was like, "This is so different." This is vastly
Yeah.
different and way more fun. This is way more fun than being ridiculed in front of a panel of judges and talking about your body. I'm running around the
Yeah.
world. Like this is a fun time. Um, but I do think that being on Top Model first helped a lot with just like the cameras and being comfortable. And I feel like I had grown into myself really solidly by the
Yeah.
time I was on The Amazing Race, and so I felt super comfortable and honestly the best experience. Top Model was an okay experience, but Amazing Race is like something I would do over and over again just because of how fun and positive it is.
Awesome. I love that. So, did you experience this? I talked to some other contestants, and one in particular was Joni from Cycle 6. She said that after the show, before it aired, there's that time period. Obviously, you're not allowed to tell anyone.
Yeah.
You really can't get any modeling jobs. And she was encouraged to get I forget how she phrased it, like a low visibility job. So she ended up like cleaning an office space or something overnight. So she wasn't like in the public spotlight, basically. Was it kind of similar experience with you in
So
that?
our season included social media. So when
Yes.
I was filming, they were posting photos of us for the public to vote. So when
Hmm.
I came home, I had hundreds of messages from friends and family being like, "Oh my gosh, you're on this show," and blah blah blah. I didn't tell anybody, but they already all knew because they were voting and
Okay,
um,
that's a good point. Yeah.
trying to progress us on the show. But when I came back, there was about 6 months in between filming and airing,
Hmm.
I was a server at a restaurant. Like that's just what I did with all that time in between,
Yeah.
just to make money. Before I moved to LA, I moved to LA right after the first episode of our
Okay.
season aired.
Okay. Gotcha. And take me back to that time in social media. So this was like there was social media, but it
Yeah.
wasn't really obviously like it is now. Did you kind of get all of these, followers and people interacting with you? You said you got a lot of messages from friends and family. Um, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, this was way before the term influencer or content
Right.
creator or anything like that. This was 2014.
Yeah.
Um, like, I don't think anyone was making money off of
Hmm.
social media at that point, maybe celebrities. Um, but I think I left to film with like 1,000 followers. And then when I came back, I had over 10,000. And
Okay.
then progressively, it just kept growing when the show was airing.
Right.
Um, but I would get messages all the time from all kinds of people just about the show and uh, some positive, some were not positive and scary. But
Yeah, I'm
um,
sure.
yeah, it was kind of crazy to just like be so exposed to the world, and people relating to me as a human,
Hmm.
um, because I was just this, small town kid who hadn't seen the world, and now I'm like everybody has seen me.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was in that time it was kind of scary because we were all figuring it out together with social media. I think Lennox
Hmm.
had like two stalkers, like scary stalkers after the show, um, like with full police involvement because of like them harassing her on social media.
Oh
Like
my
it was
God.
a kind of a wild, wild west situation with us coming off of the show and trying to figure out, I don't know, how to manage a social media account.
Yeah. Especially when there wasn't like that many examples to look towards, except for maybe Kim Kardashian or something.
Yeah, I don't even think you could post videos on
Right.
Instagram at the time.
Exactly. And you definitely couldn't get modeling jobs because you had 50,000
No,
followers or
not at
whatever.
all.
Nothing like that.
People didn't know what to do with it yet.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like even early Instagram and social media, you might follow some of the bigger celebrities, but you really kind of kept it pretty
It was
close
just like
with your
friends.
family and friends, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it stinks that kind of happened later when,
I mean, now these reality shows where people are like on Love Island, they're walking away with like a life-changing amount of just like opportunity to
hmm.
build something out of their experience on the show. I mean, if Top
Right.
Model existed now, I think this whole conversation that we're all having about not being able to get work after the show would not exist
Yeah.
if this was happening right now, just because of the world has changed in how it views people who've been on reality TV.
Hmm. And I have to say, it does confuse me a little bit, like in the industry. So obviously, it was hard for y'all to get gigs then, but now we know being in the public eye and having a lot of social media following and being talked about helps you get gigs. But it's almost like, I don't know, even with this resurgence of conversation, like they still don't care. If that makes sense,
Yeah,
like they're not like people are talking about Will on Top Model again and he's gotten, 20 more thousand followers in this
yeah.
last 2 months. Like, let's hire him for this job. I don't know. That's just like interesting to me.
I think there's still people are still unsure with whether it's a positive view of Top
Okay.
Model or it's negative, or do we
Sure.
want to be associated with it, or how is the public reacting?
Hmm.
Um, there's still a stigma around the show just based off of what people are sharing. I get it,
Hmm.
but like the show itself for 20 years was a phenomenon. People were obsessed, are still obsessed.
Still, yeah.
Obviously, there was a lot of mistakes, but the show really changed the game for reality TV in general. And there's there's two sides of it. My experience was, it was difficult. It was hard. It was life changing on the other side. Like, it really impacted my life in a positive way. Doesn't justify the trauma piece of it, but it also like changed my path in life, which I'm super grateful for. So it's, I don't know, it's a weird position for the show to be in, of just like being positive but also on the other side super negative.
Yeah. No, there's so much gray area. It's crazy. And I think a lot of people online, especially, look at it as black or white and they don't see a lot of that nuance. So it's just
Yeah.
people like fighting about it and y'all are in the middle like, wait, this was good, but that was bad, but this was good. So it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So, but all right, well, to kind of close us out on the back end, I want to do a lightning round of questions.
Okay.
Probably some that you've been asked before, but fans always love to hear about it. So, what was your favorite and least favorite photo or photo shoot from the show?
Favorite photo shoot was the MCM jumping photo that we did in South Korea.
Yeah.
Least favorite was the Elvis photo shoot that we
Mm.
did in South Korea. I hated
Yeah,
that photo shoot.
that was an interesting one for sure. Your photo turned out good, though.
It was okay. It was okay.
What was the most shocking elimination to you?
The most shocking elimination, I think, was when Chantel went home the first time. We
Mm-hmm.
were all so sure that she was gonna go far. And then when she
Yeah.
went home second, we were, or second or third, we were like literally shocked.
Yeah. Do you think there was any kind of manipulation with social media scores because we didn't really have any insight into that, that like production could just like make whatever they wanted basically?
Maybe. I don't think I think they would manipulate their judging scores. They would be like,
Okay.
okay, here's what the social media score is, here's what their challenge score is. How can we
Mm-hmm.
control the narrative of who we want to go home? And I
Yeah.
think the judges would change their scores. I don't know if they changed the
Okay.
social media scores because those were always really low.
They were low, yeah. It's
People
like,
would like vote tens and ones for everybody.
right, everyone's was like a 5 or 6 kind of
Yeah, which is
score.
crazy.
All right, who was your favorite judge or maybe like a guest mentor you had? You had like Nick Cannon, Nina, Corey Wade, tons of people.
Um, Favorite judge will always be Miss J. Like always.
Yes, sure.
The the kid in me being there with Miss J was just like over the moon, and we've seen Miss J many times since the show, not
Yeah.
recently, but always been so kind to James and I. Guest judges though, I loved. He wasn't a guest judge, but just guest on the show was Corey. I loved
Mhm.
hanging out with Corey. We did a photo shoot a couple years after the show, but he's lovely, lovely human.
Yeah. He was there for the makeover episode.
Yeah.
Did y'all get to talk with him a lot, or was he kind of in and out?
That, yeah, we talked to him a lot because the makeovers were all day. We were there from
Mm.
like 8 to 9 p.m.
Yeah.
And he was there the whole time. And so after we were done, we would just hang out and we could talk to him, which was great.
Awesome. And who was your kind of bestie in the house? Maybe
Ray
besides
Leah was
Matthew.
my bestie.
Okay. I love
We
that.
we had like a little clique. It was me, Ray Leah, Shy, and Lennox. There was a period of time in this show where Lennox and we like I won best photo, then she won best photo 3 times in a row, and then I won best photo again. So we just all four of us we stayed in the Tyra suite. I brought like a
Yeah.
mattress and put it on the floor, so we just all hung out all the time, which I loved.
I love that. Do you still keep in touch with anyone from the cycle? I see you kind of interact with some on social media.
It's definitely a lot less. Kari, Shy, and Lennox came to our wedding, which was
Oh, nice.
4 years ago, which was lovely. But I think after about 2 or 3 years after the show, we all kind of like some people moved away and everybody kind of went on their own path. And so we're all very friendly. Like if we
Mhm.
saw each other, it would be fine. But I think keeping in contact is just challenging as you get older.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, that's the end of that. Before we wrap up, do you have anything else that you want to share or touch on, talk about, plug, anything like that? I know it's kind of a loaded question.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I really I think for me, I want to go back and rewatch my season. It's been, I think, 10 years since I've watched it.
Oh
Um,
wow.
I think with this new lens of people talking about their experience, now I'm like, was my experience traumatic? Did I, should I like feel differently about the show?
Yeah.
Um, and so I really want to go back, watch it, and kind of try and, I don't know, uh, not relive it, but just kind of
Mhm.
think a little more critically about the experience and what we all went through. And um,
Yeah.
because I mean, it's so interesting, and I think it's great to have people sharing their experience on the show.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and being open and vulnerable, sharing and talking about everything. I really appreciate it, and I'm
Yeah.
sure the viewers will too.
Yeah.
I'll be sure
Thank
to,
you.
of course, I'll be sure to link your social media so everyone can follow you. You've also been doing ANTM story times on your social media, which I love seeing. And your husband has done a couple as well. I
Yeah.
saw him, the most recent one, I think he was talking about when he first saw you, like on the
Yeah.
Pyro.com or whatever, and he was like, it was instant.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining again. We appreciate it. And thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah. Thank you.